Hi, I'm Ali Paterson, and welcome back to another episode of the Regtech Show. On this episode, we're focusing on the importance of KYC and the opportunities of having information on customers. We wanted to see how big banks can partner with fintechs when it comes to being compliant, but also to handle customers' data. So I'm here in Amsterdam to speak with ING about fintech collaboration. So there's a lot of fintech companies out there that are sort of small startups, absolutely no scale, but are able to be very agile and develop new things. How do you look to partner with some of these sort of smaller companies, and what kind of lessons can be learned and then applied directly at ING?
That's a very good question, because I've been there for a couple of years and watching them when the word fintech was not even in the Google search, and we've seen the first phase of, let's say, arrogance from banks saying, well, I think they will all die, we've seen this before, I don't worry. And on the other hand, fintech saying, well, we'll kill you, I think you'll die, dinosaurs. And now we're coming to a second phase where banks say, maybe there is something interesting there by which I could reduce my costs. Man, those guys are not that stupid, right, after all. And we also see fintech saying, well, having an MVP, so a minimum viable product, is easy, but getting a customer is damn complicated and costly, right?
The companies that we work with are looking for a solution mainly in the area of customer authentication, because PSD2 comes with a lot of different areas, and we really focus on strong authentication. And that is something that evolves around how do you verify your client, how do you do KYC, how do you consistently stay on top as well on the behavior of the client within your platform, not only just at the sign up, but potentially as well once he starts interacting, transacting, or paying out funds. So I think that's where we really bring together all of the pieces, because we're not focusing on one particular solution, maybe like document ID checks, where you upload a document and it's being read out in real time, or maybe a live video call, or an address check, or a device ID check. So we bring all of these together based on the requirements that you need to comply with. And then on the other side, we actually as well have the transaction monitoring piece in place, where we are able, after the customer sign up, in real time able to really track client behavior and making sure that anything that's suspicious or out of the normal is getting flagged. And I think really that hybrid, bringing together all of the data and the solution and the verification part in the area of KYC and compliance, together with the traditional transaction monitoring, and having all of that in one single plugin, one single platform, and one single API makes us different. While on the other side, we're working with the greatest provider in the market and are very proud of that. So we don't see us as a competitor in the market with many of those solutions. We see us as an additional solution to help them power their solution.
We have 37 million customers, right? So we are operating in 40 countries. So we have 50,000 employees and knowledge. So this is something we can bring. So today we're more in the partnering mode, and we have 140 different partnerships which are operating with fintechs, from small to bigger. We're also taking stake. We have an investment, venture capital fund of 300 million. We're also spending a lot of money in innovation, partnering with them.
So Forster today is active in 5 of the 7 continents, just pushing into the 6th one as we speak. And while we do see it like in the European Union being one of the absolute hot topics and really having an impact on almost every business decision large-scale companies take, we do see other areas in the world catching up. And there's different kind of regulations in different countries, which is exactly why Forster has so many different data solutions integrated.
So we see this more as an opportunity for us to change a culture, learn things differently, embed the way of working of those guys into our operations. So we're transforming ourselves also thanks to the input. But I think they can also learn a lot from us. Right? I think we have experience, we have some tools, we have people who have been doing this. And I think maybe the paradox in all this is that the more you digitize, the more a human story it becomes. And because every single bit, behind every single bit, there is a human being, right? So there's someone deciding how to code things. And you decide it because you have something in mind. You have a set of values, of ways, of vision which you have. And I think what I see is that the more we're moving in this digitization, the more important human beings are and the more crucial they will be and make the difference between different institutions. The app will not make it, but I think the people behind it.
Having integrated the multitude of APIs of data sources into our secure platform, we are able to tackle secure customer authentication through the different compliance layers, such as validating, verifying and authenticating the customer, as well as playing with documentary evidence, electronic evidence, but as well as going so far to use our transaction monitoring engine to bring all those key elements together to make sure that we provide the most cost-effective and most compliant solution at the time. It makes no sense to overcomply things if they are not economically feasible. So therefore you have to find a middle ground to cater towards the business, but as well towards the regulators in conjunction.
I think saying that there is no silver bullet for this problem is a good picture to draw, because there's so many moving pieces and there's a lot of accountability on our clients themselves to comply with the regulation. However, we can bring a solution that actually is backed by the best-in-class data solutions in the place that are all working towards compliance in this space. So we feel that with that approach, not competing, but bringing together and allowing our clients in one single API to make best use of all of them in the most cost-efficient way possible is really something that adds value and puts us apart from many players in the market.
Along with the challenge of remaining compliant when it comes to data, there are of course many benefits for understanding your customers' information. So we were interested to hear about some of these opportunities.
What does, first of all, having all this information on customers mean from a compliance perspective, but also what are the opportunities there?
So making sure that the customer has the right to delete his own data at any point is at the center of this regulation. As well, putting a lot of accountability on the players in the market. So making sure data is encrypted, making sure you're in full control at any point of time of passing this data between entities, knowing that there's no privacy leak. Those are some of the things that are definitely a challenge.
Lea Jacobiak caught up with Wim from the European Banking Federation to talk a bit about cybersecurity and protecting customers from fraud.
We've come a long way, and cybersecurity is a huge threat. I cannot stop saying how important it is. Just imagine the Netherlands is being attacked today by hackers. All the banks have had downtime over the weekend with a massive DDoS attack. There has been an attack on the Dutch tax authority. There has been everywhere. So you see that it is essential. And banks are literally being attacked every minute. What is much, much better are a few things. Cooperation is the first one, because the realization that cyber security is not a competitive issue. If one bank is attacked, the financial system is attacked. So that is, first, banks cooperate with each other. If you recognize the signature of an attack, you start helping your colleagues. Secondly, the supervisors have become much more awake to the threat, although they still see themselves as supervisor and not as a partner. And I have argued with the ECB that they should also act as a partner, because they are just as much a target as the banks themselves. So you don't, if you only look down on your underlings from the mountain, you won't cut it. And the third thing is cooperation with law enforcement. At the European Bank Federation, we have since 2014 a memorandum of understanding. We closely cooperate with Europol in this, and one of the big frustrations was that cybersecurity was a crime where nobody would ever get caught, because if you stayed out of the country that you attacked, law enforcement wouldn't be able to reach you. Europol has made huge inroads, and now people get prosecuted, they get caught, and it is becoming less of an interesting proposition for the criminals. But it is huge. It is huge, and PSD2 may not help us there.
PSD2 is live now. but not everyone is compliant, but it is officially live now.
Right.
All these new regulations are coming in. Are they improving the financial service industry as a whole?
I would definitely think so. I think there's always that catch-up race of the industry and innovation, and then regulation trying to catch up. Now, some of this might be perceived just as a headache. Why do I now have to do all of this? But in the long term, I think it's the customer again at the focus, where you as a customer ultimately will know, where is my data going? Is it secure? Am I still in control of my data and what's being done with it? And I think that definitely can only be seen as a good sign and as a good movement. However, I'm not going to lie, it does in certain times as well currently have an impact on businesses that is not positive. So there's lots of regulation to catch up on. There's lots of new things that you need to do in an environment that's moving incredibly fast. But wherever there's challenge, there's usually solution providers, and I would say Forstop, as an example, is one of those solution providers where you do not want to change your whole business focus on compliance just because you are a payment service provider or acting in the online space with client data. On the other side, you still need to be in full compliance with the auditors and the regulatory framework that is coming your way. So a close collaboration between service providers and then allowing the people in the industry to really still focus on their core strength, that's kind of what we're striving for. And we see it in different verticals that really after we integrate with clients, there's a level of excitement to have that part taken care of, while you now can actually focus on expanding and running your business.
While PSD2 opens up for companies to exchange data through APIs, on the one side, enabling businesses to collaborate and work more efficiently together, GDPR on the other side puts the emphasis on the data subject to protect the data that is being exchanged. So while the regulations go hand in hand on the one side, there's also challenges on the other side. You are able to now transfer data between the players. On the other side, you need to enhance the security, data security. Therefore, big data and how you deal with all the data parameters come into place again. And having a platform that has security built in by design is essential, providing solutions to all the key players in the industry that have not been focusing on KYC compliance so much.
With that being said, we wanted to know how important it is for banks to have good KYC.
Let's just talk a little bit around know your customer.
Right.
How much and why is it so important for banks to have good KYC?
I think KYC in this context is not only important to the banks, but as well to the new players in the market, such as payment service providers, Fintech and Regtech companies. One of the key factors of PSD2 is that the banks are being forced to open up their environment, which means, translated, that they need to give access via API to customer and account information. Now, while that is a great opportunity for companies like Forstop and other Regtech companies in the space, there comes a high accountability with that as well. So you need to know as a business and as a payment service provider and as a fintech company who your customer is at any time, and to be able to show that to any kind of auditor in your regulatory framework is of absolute essence.
And what about when it comes to KYC? What are some of the requirements, and why is it important to be very stringent when onboarding customers in the first instance?
As well as the banks are interested in getting to know more about their customers, how the customer experience is, what the customer needs us, and how to protect them in the best way.
Do you think that's something that is very European specific, or is that very, very global?
We see a change on a global scale, but the European Commission has taken this very, very seriously, is in the forefront on protecting consumer data. Therefore, the requirements are more stringent over here, and the challenges are bleached on anybody in the payments environment.
I think the topic of KYC, knowing your customer, and data surrounding your customer is actually something that we see on a global scale.
Buzzwords come and go, but one that's never really been exploited in my view is data is the new gold.
Yes.
People haven't really exploited and been able to understand the information that they have on their customers. Well, what are some of the opportunities to use the information that you have on your customers to really enhance the experience?
Yeah, we should be also very humble in this area, because your data, I think we've been sitting on data for 10 years, 20 years, 40 years, right? And we have not maybe as bank used them. And I think many users, retailers, many people are also having a lot of data. The key is just how to use it and just make a difference between what is useful, what is not useful, and how it effectively helps customers in their decision making, right? So if you use data only for your own sake of saying, how can I sell one product better? I think it's certainly fine, but I think if you look at it from the perspective of how can I help the customer managing their finance, being empowered, then I think you come to a different relationship with your customers and building different value. You're again at the service of the customer, and in the long run we believe that the customer experience, the customer will make a difference. The customer experience will be the point where people will choose between different banks and services. You don't want a bank, right? You hate banking, but you need it any moment, right? Your mortgage, buying a shirt in a shop, or whatever you need for your company, you need a bank, or you need banking. And I think if we can help customers doing this, I think we can make a big difference. But the customer experience will be differentiating eventually.
Now, when you talk about big data, I already mentioned that clients sometimes with a single transaction or sign up can have up to thousands of data parameters associated to them. Now, if you don't have those data parameters secured, there's a big risk and a big threat that other groups will make something of that is not intended. So I think while on the one side the customer experience can greatly improve by knowing who your customer is, being certain that you have done a KYC check that is up to the standards. At the same time, it brings that accountability to actually securely deal with that data, and that's where we see a lot of regulation push and we see a lot of audits going on.
Join us for the next episode of the Regtech Show, where we're going to be looking at PSD2 in more detail.